Relationships Thursday, and giving you, the whole tips on matters you bettering your whole relationships and all that, to have the right minds for that particular conversation. Today's conversation actually touches a whole soul on most of us. Hii itaguza wengi Lemuki. Hii itaguza wengi. Sijuka itakuguza, but anyway, let me introduce.
Age just a number. Age is just a number. Is it though? We'll find out. Oh yes, and that is actually our question this particular morning. Is age just a number? Keep talking to us on that particular question. Our social media handles are just running below your screens. We'll be sharing them when you can call, or you can also text us on WhatsApp. Our guest this particular morning, Joshua Masia, a life coach on my right. Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
Elizabeth Kinyua, not a new face to this panel, life coach and also social worker. Karibu sana.
Asante.
And finally, Daniel Kamau Njino, a mental health practitioner. Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
Yes.
Yes.
Lemuki?
I think you should just start with, when it comes to relationships, Kinyua, is age just a number?
Well, thank you for having me back again. I think we need to begin from, do we want to know the reality or the ideal? There is the ideal, fine. Age is a factor. But what is the reality? The reality is that age does not really have so much effect on relationships and those that are in a relationship, depending on many other factors, of course, that come into play. Of course, there is the outlook of society. The minute you have a very big, especially when the lady is older than the man, definitely we'll throw stones at you. We will definitely look at every small issue, we'll attribute it to the age difference. So from where I see it, I think age becomes more of a problem from the societal eye and not from the two that are in the relationship. Yes.
Okay. Good.
And for you, Daniel, when you take a look at the whole age kind of bracket, is there a significant age gap, according to you, from where you sit? When you take a look and say, okay, fine, 5 years, iko sawa, lakini 25, 20, hapo sasa mmeenda sana.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me. And good question. I think it also depends also on who you're asking and at what time you're asking, right? Because if you're asking the two who are in the relationship, and we've seen very huge age differences, they probably don't have a problem. And just like my colleague has said, I think us who are the spectators are the ones who have a bit of concerns, and not really the ones who are involved. So I think to answer that question, I think we would have to go back, to the ones who are in this relationship. Definitely, like she said, and we are maybe going to open it up, there are other factors that are in play and that you'll have to consider much later in the relationship. But the age gap, I think we leave it, to the ones who are in that relationship. Yeah.
Great. And Josh, from maybe personal or even observed experience, do you think the age factor contributes to even the success of a relationship or marriage, or even challenge the notion of happiness in a relationship?
Thank you for the question, and also for having me once again here. Well, I want to join my colleagues here, my panelists, and I want to say that as much as we're saying that age really matters, which actually it does matter. But now, that is not the only thing we ought to consider in relationships. But let's be honest, age gap between, or rather over 5 years, that's a little bit of a stretch, and I want to believe, well, you can choose to decide. Okay. But I want to believe that when you're dating someone who is a little bit older than you, like more than 5 years, that person in that relationship, I don't want to believe that it's just the happiness that you guys are after. I was just doing some research, and I found out men who are attracted to women, older women, that's, well, aged per se, they have mommy issues. So how about that? How can we discuss that? So to some extent, yes. Why then do you have to choose someone who is way old, wababa, sort of saying? But but ukona mtu mwenye you can talk, you are compatible. Yes. So I want to believe as much as, yes, I want to say, in as much as we're saying age matters, but this is an affair of two people. Sometimes we just have to let them be. Yeah.
Interesting, and you brought the issue of mommy issues and daddy issues. And I don't know, you might find people dating older people. Nowadays, people are crazy. You find people even getting married to people 30 years older than them.
Right.
Yeah? Kenya, do you think it's an issue of even the upbringing? There's a way, like for us girls, you're so close to your dad. So every time, even when you're dating, you're looking for a father figure in every man that you date, and the vice versa.
I think it's the other way around. When you have an absent father and you'd want to replace that with an idea that you have in your mind, you may end up looking for that older. Yeah. And of course, there's that which you have in the town setup where there's a financial bit that you want to also factor in for the much younger generation. But I'm one person who does not condemn those relationships, because practically, if you look at them, there are those that are working. There are those that have not worked. And there are those that are genuinely there for purpose of love and companionship. So we cannot just simply demonize. However, the age factor, now when you bring in the age gap of 30 years, there are other things you have to factor in. Because, for example, you are in your 20s, you're at the high peak of your life, and your energy levels are very high. Yes. You get to a 49-year-old guy. Remember, for a 49-year-old guy, midnight begins at 9 p.m. Yeah. For you, who is in your 20s, midnight is midnight. Yeah. So you can do life up to past 1. Yeah. For this guy you're getting hooked to, by 9, he's saying good night, midnight isha ingia. Yeah. So those are things you have to look into and factor that, well, fine, my energy levels are here. Is this what I would want to do life for the rest of my other remaining part of my life? If you're comfortable, at the end of the day, the shoe wearer knows where it pinches most. Yeah. You can go for it, as long as there are no ill motives to it. Yes. And
Josh, I'm curious, because as she says, maybe even for the younger partner, right. For them, they know maybe even let's say the early 20s, right. And they know, well, I'm in my early 20s, I really need to be raving and all that, but the older partner, maybe 35, right. They've done that and they're tired of that. Right. They expect you to be home early. Very young. Or probably, probably even 40.
35 is young.
Well, they're still babies.
But then now, on the flip side, when it comes to an economic shock in this relationship, both of you realize, and maybe, God forbid, but both of you even lose a job. Right. So that is when it hits you that, actually need to travel out here.
Sure.
But then some decisions now start to revolve around, I need to do something. So how big of a deal now does that come in?
Well, thank you for the question. I want to believe, in fact, let's be honest, when you're talking of someone who is 20 years maybe older than you, and you're in a house, what are you doing as in to have fun? Because the things you might be considering fun to this person actually are a turn off to the other person. Maybe I want to go clubbing, I want to go have fun with my buddies, but to her, she's be calling, yo, come home, come back home, I don't want you outside. She's going to be my mommy, literally. And when you have someone who is literally that old, or rather, I want to say 5 years age difference is not that bad, but when it gets to maybe a point of maybe 10, now that one, like you've said before, that is someone who is trying to replace something that they've lost. If I need mother, in fact, when you ask those people, majority of the ones that are dating, the ones that are older than them, most of those people, they don't date to marriage. And just do your research. If you ask someone, let's say for instance, a young person who is 24, and an older woman who is at maybe 40s or maybe late 30s, that person is not going to oblige, or rather, if you ask them maybe the things that you'd want to do, they are not going to be compatible. The things I consider fun to them is not fun anymore. So I want to believe that it is so much of a big deal, because some of the things you do are turn off to the other person. And I don't want to believe anyone wants just to give up their youth to impress a marriage with an older person. So this is a big deal. I want to repeat that it's a big deal to to go for someone who is older than you because of the compatibility. I want to believe that's not compatible.
All right.
Yeah.
And Kinyo, even before Daniel, chip in, there's something that, Lemke was saying. She talked about someone crazy, quote unquote, going for, the whole 20 years older, maybe, or even younger. I'm thinking of the French president, that is Macron, and the wife is 25 years older.
Yeah.
Right. They've been in marriage for 15 years plus. How will you term this as crazy and beyond?
From where I sit, minus the cultural view and how we are nurtured to see it, I don't think it's crazy. For me, 20 and above would be crazy. Anything below that is manageable. Manageable in the sense that look at what we have around. I think you can, having done a research, you can check around how many of those are in those kind of gaps. The only thing that I have come also to, having interacted with a few, is that you have to be very intentional and not babysit the other person, especially if I'm speaking where the woman is older than the man. And even where the man is way much older than the lady, you have to be very intentional not to babysit your partner. Number two, you must be willing to give them the space to thrive and to be.
Are they willing?
There are those that are. Yes, I have, I think, interacted with a few, and there are those that are willing to let go. And there are those, and you also have to deal with the insecurities, because definitely when you're 15 years older as a woman,
so many,
and the man is younger, there is a sense of insecurity that comes with that. So if you're ready to manage that, give the person their space to be, I think, and respect who they are, because when they come into your life, it doesn't mean they stop existing. They have their own purpose, they have their own path and all that. So the minute you respect that, then you can take a back seat, let them be, and they'll enjoy life, and then still bounce back to you. Yeah.
Great, and I think Josh is a champion of people are close to the same age, because unasikia 10 go like, no. Let me ask you, what role...
That's why we are talking of reality versus the ideal.
The ideal.
What is the reality kwa ground?
Kwa ground ni eti watu wako na 20 years
Exactly.
plus.
But most majority of them hawaendi to marriage.
He's given you a very good example.
That's just, there's only one case.
Even yesterday I was speaking to a friend, shida ya kuwa rafiki na journalist, whatever you tell them, now it's on TV.
Yeah.
They have a family friend of theirs who has a wedding in the next 2 weeks. The dude is 60, the lady is 30 years old. So they have like a 35-year difference. Yeah, you see, so these things are happening. And then there's also the irony of people don't want to get married, but in real life, they're seeing people are way, way older. I don't know if it's because of the financial aspect, but there's the issue of maturity when it comes to dating. People are way older than you. So what role does maturity play in bridging the gap when people are dating and they have age differences?
Okay, so maturity, again, we know is also not dependent on age, right? I could be older, but yet probably I'm, doing midlife crisis.
Yes.
So at that point, my youth kicks in, and I'm at 60, I'm wearing baggy jeans and all that. And so the issue of maturity has to come into play because, again, just like she said, is that when we come together, we should be able to give each other that space to be who we are. But again, we are looking at instances where two people of different ages have come together, and maturity will come into play because, again, maturity also comes from the fact that I've lived longer than you, and so I would assume that I know better than you. And so when we come into this kind of setup, the one who is older might want to take up the responsibility or think that they have the responsibility of calling the other person out, right? And so that will kind of play into the relationship, and it's important for, I think, the couple to discuss that very early in the relationship and be able to know who is playing what role. Because again, let's take an example. So you have an older lady and a younger guy, but the younger guy coming into the relationship knows that it is a man who calls the shot, right? But they've never discussed this. So the guy knows, I call the shots, I'm the man. But the lady says, I'm older, And so you have to, at a very early stage, discuss that whole discussion of where are we in terms of the power play, so that you can have probably a longer lasting relationship. That's, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And can you think I'll first sort of the same, but now in a whole, coin it in a whole different way. Is age a determinant of someone's character?
Not really. I think character is totally independent of your age. Because as he says, it's all about maturity. You can be 25 and have the maturity of a 60-year-old. You can be 60 and your maturity gauge is at 40. The only thing I personally advocate for is for those getting into such relationships, please ensure that you don't go into it expecting the other person to be your emotional garage. That every time you need some touch-ups, you need to be pampered, you need to be over, you don't need to be a crying baby all the time. Because even guys these days are crying babies apparently. So it's not only the ladies. Yes, they are actually. Men have also become crying babies. And so you have to be very intentional, check your maturity. Do I have the shock absorbers to absorb the things that come with me getting into a relationship? Because by the time you decide, I am walking into this relationship, there are costs you've counted. There are things you've thought through. Nobody dragged you there. It's not like in the olden days when someone used to be picked and then an emissary would be sent to your parents and told, your daughter is safe, we will come to visit this and this day. No, these days you consent and you're like, am I comfortable being with this person? Do I like them? Will I be okay if I meet with my friends and I introduce this guy with gray hair and I'm 25? Fine, if you're comfortable with all those things, can I be myself when I'm around them? Those are the 4 things that I always talk about. Can I be myself when I'm around them? Am I comfortable?
Issues. And saying that, no, I'm older than you. I'm 20 years older than you. So this is how things go.
That's why I said you have to be careful and count your cost when you're getting into it. Because the older partner, depending on the gap, has more experience, has more exposure, and they're more likely to babysit you. Let me use that quote unquote. Yeah. They are more likely to babysit you. And so they have to be very intentional when you're having discussions, because you can be going through a challenge and in their mind like, I've been through that, I've seen that, I know that, and all that kind of stuff. But they have to come down now to the level of, okay, let me try and reason at your level. They really have to come down many times, and that has to be very intentional and very deliberate. So in short, what we are saying, where there's a very big age gap, it's a delicate balancing act. And then, very delicate.
Sorry, but why are we taking all that weight on ourselves? Why do I have to lower my, I don't know, so I accommodate you so that I can feel whatever you are talking about? Why do I have to go all that extra mile? And I have a girl who is just, within 10, 5-year age difference, I don't have to struggle a lot, trying to look for a father figure. As a woman, I believe, they don't have to go looking for a mubaba. Imagine you're taking your husband home, who is someone who's actually older than your father. And your father has to sit there, how respected fathers-in-law usually are. And he's there talking to his son-in-law, who is older than him, probably more money than him. So what do you tell him? What do you tell him exactly as your son? So as much as we were saying, there's that freedom of people choosing whoever it is that they want to be having. We need not to be struggling that much. Imagine of a situation of a mother, or rather a single lady who is maybe a single mom, and needs to, get maybe a boyfriend. And then they get a boyfriend. What happens after that is that, you actually get into a roller coaster of emotions. You have to, be sweet talking her every day because she has issues with the baby daddy, of course. There's all that saga with the, emotional attachment, detachment. So there's a lot of work when you're dating someone who's older than you. Why do we have to give ourselves all that? Do you guys mean ndio uende mtu mwenye ako 20 years older than you? Does it mean umetafuta mtu mko compatible akapotea kabisa? I don't want to understand that point. And then look at this. Someone who is, or rather fiancé or they've married. I don't know whether this is a little bit insensitive but what is the goal of marriage or relationship or dating? What is the goal? What are we focusing on? And you see, the reason why I'm saying the relationship with old persons are fake, because they are getting there as young persons because they need something. You can be sure of that. Either they need, especially at the moment, most of them need someone who can provide something like maybe money, because an elder person is probably moneyed. So they might need something like money. And what does this older person need in a young person? I mean, honestly, does it really mean that you cannot get, you know, a soulmate who that you don't have bigger age difference, so that you don't go struggling? And by the time that person is, let's say you are a boy, or rather a man who is 25 years, and you've gone for a lady who is maybe 40 years and above, maybe 45. Maybe your activeness, you're very active. She's not, as you know. Where do we get striking a balance? That's where you get issues of, you know, you are married, but you're still cheating on the person you've married. And they cannot complain, because to you, it's like they're having a favor having you. So someone has to, like, you know, suppress themselves. They cannot tell their husband or to be responsible, because they cannot tell them, because they're afraid of losing them to that younger person. So why do you have to give yourself a lot of work, and you can just choose something, like you're being asked to choose between eating a stone or a bread. You literally go for so that you cannot, you know. I don't know whether you understand my point.
Maybe I could just jump in on that.
Please.
So she just asked. So there's a reality and there's the ideal.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the ideal is what we hope would be. But the reality is that these two people are the ones who have to decide those value systems, or whatever they want to decide, okay, for themselves, okay? So we, as spectators, we watch football and we commentate all the time. You know, you should have kicked this ball on this side, this side, all that, yeah? So at the end of the day, these two people still have to decide for themselves what they want. And we know all the factors you're talking about have to come into play, finances. But what about if all these things are checked in? They're not in for the finances, they have no problems with their different energy levels, you know, and all the other factors that could come into play. So who are we, right? The guys who are spectating, to come in and start throwing stones and say, no, you know, and we know all these things. And especially, you know, God forbid, if you're a celebrity, you know, you'll be judged harsher or more harshly, right? Because the spotlight, because we have an expectation of what we think
should be.
The ideal should be. But on the ground, really, it's me and this guy. At the end of the day, when the lights are off, it's us who get to decide.
Right.
And,
yes. Great. And can you even, as we speak of all this, the issue of the societal notion of age disparity when it comes to relationships or even marriage. So how do you navigate family, social pressures when it comes to you now, you people? Is it about you two, or sometimes you really want, you have something with this person, but you're worried, what does the society think about this? So how do people navigate that in order to make this relationship work?
I think last week I was in Mombasa and that question came up. So I think the young people are really troubled by these issues. And my take is, when the door shuts and everybody's out and the cameras are off, it's the two people who really know what they're going through in that relationship. Or even when they get into marriage, it is only the two of them, the shoe wearers, who really get to understand. So by the time, I always say, by the time you're getting affected by what people think, there's a level of acceptance and maturity that you've not really grown up to. Because I always say, if I'm comfortable to the place where I can dress up in a kitenge and striped socks, my confidence levels are good. I don't care what you think. I'm good. I mean, the weather is cold, so I can do my kitenge and my striped socks, and I'm good to go. My confidence, my esteem, you have nothing, you cannot puncture it at all. So yes, we'll have opinions out here, and we have no control of what people say. So if I'm not comfortable, remember the 4 pointers I gave. If at that point I am very worried about this guy, then I need to go slow on it and deal with my concerns. If really they are affecting me to the point I feel I cannot fit in, I can always step out. Remember, we are talking of a relationship, not a marriage yet. And you have the opportunity to step out. I always advocate for, if you're not yet in and you have fears and concerns, please step out, step aside, think through it. Because even those with smaller age differences, they have their own issues. They have their own challenges that can make them feel very uncomfortable and raise some concerns, okay? Even today when we are living in this generation, there are people who have a problem with community and tribe.
Yes.
So if it is still troubling me, I need to take a back seat. Don't rush. Don't rush challenge. Because you rush into it, then you're constantly not very comfortable, you're not satisfied, and then we get to see the image of very unhappy people, yet it is me. At the end of the day, the buck stops with me, my dear. Yes. It stops with me. Yeah.
I love the fact that, you know, all of you really sum up to the whole fact that it really has to be both of you to sit down and decide.
Yes.
But I'm curious, who has a better value? Is it the older partner or the younger partner? Because, I mean, you're saying that even now for the older person, they'd probably say, well, whatever he is saying, he is telling me or she's telling me, I've gone through it. Or whatever, you know, she's telling me, I've gone through it. The younger would probably say, I'd want to look up to this person and, you know, actually learn from all that. But now, who has a better value? I'd really want to pick your minds, all your minds on the same. I think, can you consider
who instills values? They're instilled at the family level, right? So it doesn't matter whether you are, your age is not, forget about age. If the foundation where you're raised is wrong, your values will also be messed up from that foundation level. So it's not about whether I am 50 or I'm 60. Fine, you keep polishing on what has been instilled on you as you grow older and as you get the exposure that you get out there. But the values really you come in with are all of them founded from where you were raised, the family setup, the place that you were raised up.
Let me jump on that. When we get into relationships, remember, we are coming into these relationships for very selfish reasons. So whoever is benefiting is that person in the relationship. When I buy a sports car, I'm not buying a sports car to make the guy who's selling the car happy. I'm buying the sports car because it makes me happy.
Yes.
So when I get into that relationship and I'm dating a younger guy, I'm dating a stud, you know, I'm happy because I have a young guy and whatever benefits that come with that. If I'm a younger guy dating an older woman, if my perks are financial and it's a person who knows, and I'm happy about it, then I'm getting what value, you know, I want from that relationship. So when two people in this relationship and they're happy, there's no one, you know, for us we would think, you know, they're in for this thing for the money, they're in this thing for, you know, they have low self-esteem, probably they have dad issues. Who are we to judge? They're happy, okay? So when you know what you're looking for into that relationship, and if you're getting it, right, who are we? We're spectators.
Well, I think everyone has made a valid point, which I want to actually agree, especially when we talk of as long as you are happy, you know, as long as you're happy, I'm good. We are happy as well. We are happy for you. We are happy. Just do your thing. Because like you've said, I think we are getting at something when we talk of talking and laying down foundations before everything starts. I need to know what is it that you are looking after, like what's your interest in this thing. Maybe I need some financial muscles from you and we are compatible in that way. Maybe you are convenient for me. This is what I maybe wanted. Maybe I needed someone to be going out abroad with a vacation and all that kind of thing. So if that's what I wanted and I'm in for the relationship for that, then that's good. I think we can agree on that. But then I think when we are talking of a long-lasting thing, when you have goals, and I don't know, like, I guess, like she said, it has to be independent at times. Like, what do I want in this relationship? What's my goal? So when we are focusing on the independence of the interest everyone has in a relationship, I think that's when we can now open a window and say, well, as long as you're happy, we are happy. But the society is always going to judge anyway. Yeah.
And just a reminder even for our viewers, remember you can always talk to us on our socials. The question is age a factor in relationships? You have it on the screens. Question of the day, is age a factor in a relationship? You're probably in a relationship right now and you're reviewing it, unashangaa, napeleka umpoa Christmas. It's only 25 days, by the way. Unampeleka Christmas kwa wazazi, lakini unashangaa, I'm a chick, but he's way younger than me. So is age a factor in this particular relationship? Talk to us on your thoughts on the same. You can also call in live, 0768 095 491. 0768 095 491. Limke?
Yeah, let me just ask Kenya that in most relationships nowadays, not even only the ones that there's an age gap, communication is key. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So what role does open communication play when it comes to people are dating and they have a big age difference in terms of even promoting mutual understanding and respect in that relationship?
I think for me, communication is like the oxygen supply in any relationship, whether, a boy, girl, man, woman, and girlfriends and boyfriends. If there's no communication, then the oxygen supply is cut. Then when there's no oxygen supply, it means the relationship is as good as dead. Mm-hmm. And so people have to be very open in terms of how they communicate, and there has to be some high level of genuineness and authenticity in how we make that communication. What do I mean? One, why are people getting into these relationships? Let's begin from there. Am I getting into this relationship for what I can see, the wallet I can see, the good car I can see? I have to be very clear what my intentions of getting into these relationships are. Unfortunately, I think we have also a generation that is looking at what is it in it for me, as opposed to what can I bring also into the relationship. Yeah. I beg to clarify on that. I know that was not your question, but it's good for us to realize relationships are give and take. Mm-hmm. It's not only me giving and giving and giving, mm-hmm. or me receiving only, because then at the end of the day, the other person will automatically feel drained, mm-hmm. and used, and then it will be noisy and messy at the end of the day. So when people want to get into genuine relationships, open communication is definitely a determining factor, and I say again, is the oxygen supply that will sustain. If you're uncomfortable, because then you have to communicate the good, the bad, and the ugly. Mm-hmm. I'm not okay at this level, but how do you communicate it, mm-hmm. is what makes a difference. Yes. Okay? So I have to be sober enough. I have to call myself for a meeting, let me use that, mm-hmm. where I can actually assess what am I going to do, whatever I'm telling this person, what is the end result I want to gain out of it? Yes. Right. Is it to bring them down, or for us to solve this problem? Because some people will communicate with the sole agenda to bash you, to make you feel like nothing, bring you down, for you to beg, mm-hmm. and ask, okay, mm-hmm. so what do we do? Yes. Mm-hmm. And the result of it should be, I don't think I'm okay with this. I didn't like the way this thing was done. I don't like how you spend the money that we have, and all that kind. So what can we? The minute you introduce we in your communication, then you move from where you're holding the gun and cocking your gun to disarming yourself, and now we are amicably talking. Yes. We must agree to disagree, mm-hmm. honorably. Mm-hmm.
And Daniel, still on the whole communication, let's build it up to now for the both of them. And now to a bigger, now this is time for making a big decision. Mm. Let's say children. Mm. The older partner, for example, let's say they're 40. This partner has children maybe has 2 kids or maybe 1. Now the younger partner, they definitely want a child. Maybe they're getting into that whole stage of life, they really want a child. So how do you really break this down? I mean, will you say, I mean, he propagates, I mean, for around the same age, I mean, it's easier. But then now for that age gap, does it really pose a huge challenge when it comes to making some of these big decisions? Yeah. Do you find that you're actually not on the same page?
Oh, it does. As in, if so the older person in this relationship is a lady, mm-hmm. and they're in their menopausal ages, right? You're in your 25, and you get hit by the baby bug, and I need a baby. I really want a baby, right? And you're demanding water from a rock. Mm. It becomes very difficult, right?
Yeah.
And so this, again, like she said, it has to be an issue that is discussed very early on in the relationship. Because we know the curves of relationships. So the first curve is, the high. So at this point, we don't talk about the tough things. Here we talk about, I really like you, I want to see you, and all this really nice things. Yeah? And so at this point, really, we should be able to discuss, or should be discussing, fundamental things like probably babies and finances and all that. But, because of, that first initial phase, we forget and, shelve all these other important things. So just to answer your question, it is very important, right? But like you said, if you don't communicate effectively and lay out very important agendas, finances, babies, all that, on the initial stages, health, on the initial stages, then you, just like to answer, the longevity of that relationship will be hampered, right? So that by the time that infatuation phase is over, it comes down, nose diving so fast. And it becomes, that's why we see, probably by the end of 1 year, a lot of relationships are, crumbling. Because at the point now when, all these nice feelings are over and we have to deal with the reality, we realize that there are certain aspects we did not discuss that we should have. Right. Yeah.
Josh, even as you chip on the same, is it now easier for people who are around the same age to be on the same page when it comes to some of these decisions as compared to people who have that
Absolutely,
age gap?
Stanley, I agree that it's easier. Sometimes, I want us to also leave a room where people change when they get into relationships. Sometimes you are maybe discussing something even at the premature age where you're just newbies, and you're arguing, I don't need a child, I just need a partner for the rest of my life. But then after 5 years, something else strikes. Oh no, I actually need a baby, I need a child. And that time your partner is already past the menopause. So what do you do after that? Now these are the things I'm talking about when I say we need to be very careful when we are choosing whoever it is that we are making to be our partners. Because at the end of the day, there are those, you might say I'm there for the thrill, just the two of us, it's our two-thing affair. But this is just the same mentality as saying, I don't owe nobody an explanation, which is a very I don't care statement. People owe others explanations. I owe the students I teach good life. I owe them, in as much as I'm saying this is my life, but no, it's not my life. You cannot be your own. I mean, the society really has to be depending on one another. We have to, the things I see, maybe I want to learn a thing from you. But then here I am. I have chose a partner who is that, age gap, which is pretty huge. And then it gets to a point that, no, I need to have a baby. But then if you have a younger partner, and that time comes and both of you feel like, we should have a baby. You go into the hospital and do whatever needs to be done and get a baby. But then this other person, you're going to cause them pain for the rest of their lives. Unaitisha mtoto na huyu mtu hana ability ya kuzaa. And then all of a sudden, that person is like, what can I do for you? What can I do for you? Maybe you're going to look for maybe a surrogate or something like that, which maybe, arguably, sometimes in a society, the old wazee would say, maybe I need an offspring. Kuna those societal kind of demands, tunataka ukuwe na offspring wako, that kind of thing. There is that, and as a man, sometimes people like to, that ego as a man. So that's why I'm saying there's a point, and as much as tunasema, you need to lay down the foundations of this relationship, but things change mbele. What about when they change? Then what do we do at that point? Well, there might be other solutions, but they might also, shake the relationship.
I can see Kinyo really wants to raise a point, but that whole bit reminds me, this morning while we were reviewing the papers, we were seeing that story. Shocker's 70-year-old woman gives birth to twins. So you may never know.
Allow me to respond because this is burning. I think when you walk into a relationship with very high expectations, you're bound to get very frustrated. And I think we are also speaking from reality versus the ideal once again. From what I can pick, because one, even people who are of the same age are having problems getting children.
Right, but let's not look at the negative side.
Let me finish.
All right.
Will you walk out of that person's life simply because they can't give you babies? Remember, when people take vows, vows are not contracts. They say for better or for worse. By the time these people are walking down the aisles, they are ready to take whatever comes, regardless of the age. So I would be very cautious to look at it like, if you don't give me a baby, I'm out. If you don't give me a baby, I'm very unsatisfied. People lose jobs. People get involved in accidents and they are rendered jobless. Businesses go down. Multi-million businesses go down. These are the things people take in the vows and they say for better, for worse. If I'm here and I'll walk out on my partner tomorrow, then I am not in a genuine relationship with this person, regardless of their age. Number two, he also said there is that which society will demand, and we demand the society an explanation. I don't think two people who are in love, unless they are doing extreme things, or the society any explanation as to what is happening into their lives, right? When I decide to buy a car, I'll not go asking the society the opinion of the brand of car that I want to buy, as long as the two of us have agreed that we want a Toyota, okay? We want a Nissan Note, we want. It is a shoe, I want to repeat that and emphasize. It is a shoe wearers who know where the shoe pinches most. I will not live life for the society. I will not borrow loans for the society to live on the other side of Uhuru Highway. Never. If I want to be happy, I can live on the other side of Uhuru Highway and be the happiest person with the person I have decided, intentionally thought through to do life with them.
All right, so I think time to take a short break. I'm still curious, Lemukia, I mean, why is it the fact that younger men are really rushing for older women at this age? I think we'll really be picking.
What is the enemy?
Right, let's take a short break. We can definitely keep talking to